Okay, so we're live again. It is Monday morning, early Monday morning, Labor Day, 12:53 a.m. I just figured I'd come on here because I have the night off. Do a little bit more true crime, but we're going to start out with the Tropics because I was going to come on this morning, earlier yesterday morning, and do the Tropics, but figured I'd do it tonight. Hope everybody's having a good Labor Day so far. Everybody's good. All right, so let me play an intro, and I'll be back in a few seconds. It's this one right here. Hey, Miranda, how are you? Good to see you again. I'll be right back. All right. So I'm playing around with different musics for my intro. I don't I don't know what to tell you. That's Monday. I should be working, but this is what happens when you like it. Thank you. This is what happens when they give me a night off. I just go crazy. Hey, Southern Gal, how are you? Good to see you. Something else here. I was just over there on her live. She's a great live again tonight. Part of the missing, and then I went over all my heritage with being Canadian, all of that stuff. It's one thing about Canadian people. Like I'm 65% Canadian, so I can pretty much make fun of Canadians. Because it's really cold up there. They always have this beautiful advertisement of this beautiful summer day, and it says "Come to Canada." That's like one day of the year. That's the only day. Just kidding. I don't know. My grandfather was 100% French Canadian. He was the oldest of 13 kids. They had 13 children. You know, the Catholic Canadians. He was the oldest, and we used to go to Montreal all the time. We used to, especially when we were kids, and he used to have to translate for us because I can kind of make out some of what he was saying, but I couldn't speak French at all. But he got into more fights. He couldn't stand Canadian people. So just that. Plus, I have about 10% Parisian French in me too. So the rest is pretty much all English, and I got a tiny bit of Lebanese, but most of it's French. So it's their fault. All right. So, anyways, getting down to 47 here tonight, and I love it. You have the windows open, and I'd love to sleep like this. It's finally warm here tonight. Last night was warm too, but it was really kind of on the live. I was dodging raindrops again. That explains a lot about me. It sure does. It's too funny. All right. So, what are we gonna do? I don't know. Let's go to the Tropics first, and then we'll go. Over a couple of things. It's good to have at least a couple people in here tonight. Miranda Lee, Southern Gal. Happy Labor Day to everybody. I know it's early Labor Day, but it's still Labor Day. Right, so let's check out a little bit of the Tropics, and then we'll get to some true crime. What am I doing? Let me do this first. Let's go to this trial here. Let's go to this first, and then I'll go to the Tropics in a couple minutes. This is the case against Donna Adelson. I don't know if anybody's been following this, but they convicted Charles Adelson a few months ago, and now her trial is going to start up pretty soon too. This case has been going on for quite a while. But there's a conspiracy here between Donna and Charles to unalive the in-law husband. So there was a couple other people involved, but this is a good. I'll try to follow this case as much as I possibly can because supposedly this woman here, Donna Addison, is the ringleader of all of this stuff, and they finally got her trial, which is probably going to start in a few weeks here. So let me share this. And yes, Charlie and his girlfriend. Yes, she looks so innocent though. She just does. They always look so innocent. It's amazing how, when people get to sorry. Don Markle. Yes. I've been kind of following along with this case, but I haven't been like 100% on this because there's been so many other, trials going on coming up, especially with the the Karen Reed case, and what's the other trial that was going on not too long ago with the person down there in Florida that she just got found guilty. So anyways, let's start this here. So
a Florida grandmother who prosecutors say played a part in the murder for hire plot of her daughter's ex-husband, a law professor, Dan Markell, who was a father of 2 boys. This is their story. FSU law professor and father of 2, Dan Markell, was going through a bitter custody battle with his ex-wife, Wendy Adelson, when he was gunned down in his Tallahassee driveway in July of 2014.
So this is the old typical M for a hire here with the husband-in-law. Apparently they didn't care for him too much.
By these 2 men, Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera. Investigators tried to piece together why a Latin King gang member and his friend would kill Dan Markell. And as they worked their way through the evidence, they found a link. Sigfredo Garcia's longtime girlfriend and the mother of his children, Catherine McBanawa. Catherine had also dated a Ferrari-owning periodontist from South Florida named Charlie Adelson, who just so happened to be Wendy Adelson's brother. Now,
this is your typical love triangle here, I think. Or it's just so weird how people can do stuff like this.
Luis Rivera, Sigfredo Garcia, Catherine McBanawa, and Charlie Adelson have all been convicted for their roles in the murder for hire.
It's Cold Truth. Hey, Mel, how are you? Good to see you. Mel is awesome. Cold Truth is the real deal. I try to catch her lives as much as I possibly can if I'm awake. It's usually tough for me during the day because I'm usually sleeping because I'm pretty lazy. But Cold Truth, Mel is a fantastic person. She just is. So if anybody doesn't know who she is, she does incredible work. Literally, she's the one that got me into the Kimberly Moreau case up there in Maine, and I'm still kind of working on that. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, I can get up there. I want to get up there to that part of Maine and take a look at the, that town that she went missing in. But that's another story. This is the kind of going over this Donna Adelson case here.
Plot, but prosecutors say they are not alone. The Adelson family matriarch, Donna Adelson, is in custody and set to stand trial.
Thank you, Southern Gal. If you want a wrench, Mel, let me know. I'm good at giving out wrenches. I have like I think I have 170 subscribers and I have 170 moderators. So funny.
For her part in the murder of Dan Markell. A jury has already convicted the dentist mastermind of this case, Charlie Adelson. He is serving a sentence for first-degree murder, conspiracy, and solicitation. This was after an 8-day trial in Leon County, Florida. But before those deliberations began, Charlie took the stand to tell his version of events surrounding the murder of his ex-brother-in-law.
Did they give the other 2 guys immunity, or did they? I don't know. I'll have to look into that. The other 2 guys.
Did you cause the death of Professor?
Yeah, I feel so bad for that family. Whoops. the hell am I doing here? I feel so bad for the family there, up there in Maine, the Moreaus. I'd like to get some. I mean, that would be great if they could get some answers for that. Hold on, let me find out what's going on here.
Dan Markel.
Absolutely no.
Did you hire anyone to kill him?
No.
Do you recall making a joke that buying her a TV was cheaper than hiring a hitman? Something to that effect.
Yeah, it was. Want me to say what?
Yeah, tell me what the joke was.
What happened was, like, when I gave her the TV set as a divorce present, this is the stupidest thing I ever said in my life. And I said, I was going to get you a hitman, but the TV set was a lot cheaper, so I went with the TV set instead. And I said it as a complete joke, and it was stupid.
Did you ever become aware of efforts by your family, including yourself,
Yes.
to offer Professor Markel money to allow your sister to relocate?
I did, yes.
And do you recall who came up with that idea?
It was my parents.
What were the terms of the offer? How much was it for?
Can anybody hear that? Let me know if the sound's good. Yeah, watch out for me. I'm going to be throwing wrenches at everybody. Hold on a second here. Thank you, Mel.
The offer was for $1 million.
Do you ever talk with Catherine Magbanua? And we'll talk a lot about her in a little bit. But did you ever talk with
So this echo is coming from the video. It's not coming from me, but it only lasts a few seconds, just to let you guys know.
Catherine Magbanua about that $1 million offer?
Yes, I did.
And what do you remember telling her?
The same thing I told everybody else. It came up when she was asking me about, doesn't your sister want to move back home? And I said, yeah. We tried everything we could. We even offered Danny $1 million to move back to South Florida.
That day, now we're on the 18th, July 18th.
This guy doesn't. I mean, that's what you got to do, right? This guy to me doesn't sound guilty, but they've already convicted him. I think they gave him life in prison plus a lot more.
Did you speak with your sister that morning?
I did.
What do you recall talking to your sister about?
I called her in the car on the way up to work, and I ended up talking to her. She's told me that she was having the TV set repaired. I thought she had told me that Lincoln had thrown something at it and broke the screen. So she was getting a TV fixed.
At some point in time, you hear from your mom. How do you hear from your mom?
I had a missed call from her, 1 or 2 missed calls, and then she texted me, call us ASAP. She told me that Wendy had just called her and that Dan had been shot and that it was serious and that her and my dad are going to be going up to Tallahassee to be with her.
Did you speak with Catherine Magbanua?
Yes, I did.
And what did you tell Catherine Magbanua on your...
Does anybody know if Miss Barbara's okay? I haven't seen her for a couple of days. So this guy here was in a murder for hire plot with the Donna, the one that's going on trial here in a few days, a few weeks. I think the 17th of September. I could be wrong about that, but it was this huge M for hire thing here with this case.
Ride home.
I told her that my ex-brother-in-law had been shot and it's serious. And I just told her I really didn't feel like going out tonight and just hang out at the house if you still want to come over. She said, no, I'm still coming to see you.
What happened when she arrived?
When she arrived to my house, she came in through the garage, entered into the kitchen from the side door like she always does. And she just looked panicked and upset. I mean, she walked straight in and gives me this big, tight hug and asked me, like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, just a horrible day. But she looked more upset than I've ever seen her. I'm like, are you okay? She's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, just come sit down. I need to talk to you.
Where did you go?
We walked into the living room.
And what happened when you got to the living room?
We sat down on the couch and she started to talk to me. And she said, listen, this is all my fault. But I had.
How did she get a hematoma? That's horrible. The poor thing. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, somebody always lies. Somebody always, it's amazing how they get these people. I watch a lot of these, interrogations that they do when they have these love triangle type things and murder for hire things. The cops really do a great job of getting these guys to give up the shit. It's amazing sometimes. And it's usually they put these people in different rooms and they all come up with different stories. Sometimes they won't stop talking in the interrogation. So sometimes they just kind of give up the they just won't shut up. So they just give up all of the information, and it's just these cops have heard all of this shit before. So it's these cases, I don't want to say are easy, but they're kind of easy to unlock, I would think.
No idea anything was going to happen, but this is totally my fault. I spoke in too much detail about your family's personal problems, about your sister, Dan Markel, and the $1 million offer.
What did you say?
I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, my friend killed Dan, and he wants to be paid $350,000. And I'm like, Katie, I'm not going to be part of it. Like, I'm not going to be part of paying for a murder.
Hey, Fox Lady, how are you? Is that the other? Are you talking about the one who? Hey, Big Fish, Small Pond. Good to see you. Interrogation Files is great. There's another one too that I watch. The Real something, and then I'll get a list of them that I watched. Watching the interrogations is just. If you ever want to have a good time and laugh your head off, to just watch some of these interrogations, because these people just don't shut up. The first thing you do when you get into this room is you say, I want a lawyer. They keep talking and talking and talking and talking, especially that guy. I forget his name now. They just arrested him last year, I think, and he was in the interview. The guy, I think it was in Arkansas. Either Arkansas or Missouri. He kept talking and talking and talking. There's good news, right? The good news when they do that, but you would think people would have this, sense of mind just to shut the hell up. Donna, right? Is that's the Wendy is the other one, right? Good to see all you guys. Hope everybody's having a good Labor Day so far.
This is insane. And she's like, look, if you don't pay in 48 hours, they will kill you.
The jury didn't believe his story, and they convicted him. He was sentenced to life in prison. And we now know from court documents that Charlie.
Some people have a better, stamina thing when they're on, when they're on the stand. That guy seems pretty mellow to me, but they got him. They weren't buying it.
Adelson, they're planning for him to be transported from the prison where he is in South Dakota to Florida for Tallahassee, that trial that's happening for his mother, Donna. So it brings us to our first question of the night. What will Charlie Adelson say at Donna's trial? Is it going to be different? Let's bring in our guests. Joining us, we have two people who know this story inside and out. Criminal defense attorney and former federal prosecutor in Florida, Tim Jansen, is with us. Also co-host of the Surviving the Survivor podcast, Emmy Award.
Thanks, Big Fish. Appreciate that.
Winning journalist Joel Waldman is with us as well. It's good to have you both on. Joel, let me start with you. What do you think Charlie Adelson will say knowing that he is being called as a state witness. So it will be technically the case against his mother.
Hi, Julia. Thank you for having me. Hello to Tim, who's a good friend. And I just want to say I'm thinking of the Markel family. I've been speaking with Ruth. These are always very difficult times for them when they head into trial. So I think we should all, respect that and think about the kind of the endless cycle and this ripple effect that victims have in these cases. But to answer your question, what will Charlie say? He's going to stick to this double extortion theory, which is sort of insane, but he's going to do it with a twist. And he's going to say, look,
this guy here is awesome too. I'll have to check that out, Mel. I'll have to somehow. Yeah, this guy's really good. Mandu and Mandu 2. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I think Donna's trial starts on the 17th. I'm not sure. I'm going to try to follow that because, like I said, I know about this case. I've been kind of following this case here, but I haven't been like glued to it. I've been watching the Black Swan case down there in Florida and a couple of the other ones. Yes, it is infuriating. All these things are. It's the loops. I agree. Yeah, this guy's awesome. I try to catch him as much as I possibly can too. Surviving the Survivor, right? Is that his channel?
my mom had absolutely no idea. She was just listening to what I was telling her. I didn't want to divulge too much information. And
I'll watch anybody as long as they, not attacking families and shit like that. That's just not warranted. I'll watch just about anybody, especially anything that's got Dr. Ann Burgess on there or anything like that. I'm a big fan of Ann Burgess. She's just an incredible person.
He's going to say that she had very limited knowledge of what was going on.
Finally had half the brain that woman did. My God.
Only insofar as that she could help them. There's one little problem with all this that Tim will tell you is now we've got text messages, jailhouse calls. We've got the infamous bump and recordings, wiretaps after that. It's going to be an uphill battle once again for Dan Rashbaum, the defense attorney, and Alex Morris, who's joining him.
Tim, do you think that anything is going to change at trial? He has been behind bars. To Joel's point, there's been a lot of communication that has happened since he was convicted. Is anything going to change once he gets there? And do you think the defense is going to call him as well?
Well, defense may call him, but they may use cross-examination to get their point across. I call them the Velcro defendants. They're both stuck together. This double conspiracy is gonna go forward. The only thing that's gonna really change is maybe the courtroom, and that's because the defense doesn't want the public to come to the courtroom. They want to limit how many people can come to the courtroom. The public has a right to see who was responsible for the death of a prominent citizen. I think the judge will get through that, but I think you're going to see the same defense. The state's going to have a little more evidence. Donna's going to probably testify. The other son may testify on behalf of the state. It looks like Katie is being transported back to testify, but in reality, you earlier opened up with the mastermind was Charlie. Well, the state's theory is going to be the mastermind was Donna, that she put all this in motion, and Charlie was just the conduit, and that Donna was protecting herself by staying away from direct contact with Meg Bonawa and the killers.
That is true. They do have to change it up. We have seen that where prosecutors say something a bit different about who was the ringleader once they do a different trial. That big piece of evidence that the co-defendants had in those trials were these checks from the Adelson Institute written to Catherine McBanawa. So that we know is going to be front and center. Let's take a listen back.
When was the first check issued from Adelson Institute to Catherine McBanawa?
The date on the checks was September 17th, 2014.
And how often did Catherine McBanawa receive checks from Adelson Institute after that?
She received 2 checks a month.
Were all of the checks deposited by Catherine McBanawa?
They were.
Who were all the checks signed by?
Donna Adelson.
Do you think there's going to be more evidence that we didn't see at the first trial, Joel? The trial that we've seen, I say first, but there have been now 4 different trials in this case. This is going to be the 5th. Those checks, though, have been throughout, but anything new in this case?
The short answer is yes. The second part of that question, you're going to ask me, what is it going to be? Don't really know, to be honest, but we do have these text messages. We were covering this very closely on our podcast, Surviving the Survivor, and Tim's big part of the show. We've got, WhatsApp messages where you see Donna Adelson reaching out to a place called Indochina Sun Travel.
Hello, Luis. How are you? Good to see you. Awesome to have Luis in here.
She's urgently requesting a visa to get to Vietnam. For those people who are not familiar, she tried to get away on a one-way ticket via Dubai to Vietnam with her husband, Harvey. That's when she was arrested exactly 1 week after her son, Charlie's conviction. She's arrested at Miami International Airport. So we're going to see these new pieces of evidence. Another interesting piece, I guess I will tell you some of the new pieces that I said I didn't know. The calendar. Donna Adelson was keeping a very meticulous calendar. We poured over this again at STS. You can just by visually looking at this calendar, you can see her controlling nature. She has every day mapped out, what she needs to do, huge check marks. And a big part of that was her getaway plan to Vietnam. And these payments that you alluded to, she was keeping track of that as well.
I told you he knew this case inside out. We are going to talk about it after this break, Joel. Both Tim and Joel are staying with us. Coming up, we're going to talk about, will Donna Adelson be taking the stand in her case?
She looks so innocent, though. She just looks so, I that's why I could never be a law enforcement person, because she just looks so innocent. But apparently she's the mastermind behind all of this, so.
Drew me to Court TV was this opportunity to combine the two things that I love. When I was in college, I studied television and radio, and then, of course, went to law school. And when I found out that Court TV...
Because once you arrive at County Jail, they're going to make you remove all that.
Donna Adelson and her husband Harvey were stopped. You saw them there at the Miami airport. They were allegedly attempting to board an international flight to Vietnam about a week after their son Charlie was convicted at trial. Here's a look at Donna Adelson as she's being taken into custody.
Hi, how are you? You have your ID?
I don't want to give it to you. Why do I have to? Why do I have to give it to you? I have to go. I have to go. I can help you.
She tried to play keep away with her cell phone. That wasn't going to work.
My husband's almost 80 years old. He can't.
Yeah, I can't. Please, can I go? No, I can't join there. Oh, don't, please.
Please.
Oh,
Someone's got to help him get home. It's terrible.
It's okay with you?
Please. You know, that can for some please. Yes. Do you have anything in your pocket?
No. No.
Do you have anything of value in you?
No, I
Plus, you have my necklace on.
You wanna go?
You can take it off. I'll take it.
Yeah, take it off. Okay. And the earrings, the rings, take everything. You give it to your husband. Because once you arrive at County Jail, they're gonna make you remove all that.
Can I call my attorney?
You can get a proper road.
Where am I going? Where am I going?
You're going to the Dade County Jail. Dade County Jail. You're making a mistake. No, it's two mistakes.
So the next place is what, the warrant? What did you say? What did you say the next place was?
Well, what happened is the warrant that they have for me is from out of Leon County.
When did they issue a warrant?
So what happened is we have to take you to our warrants room for that information to get entered, and then after that gets entered, before we can take you to the jail, to the local jail.
Okay, because I didn't know there was a warrant. How would I know that?
Well, we wouldn't have been able to take you if there wasn't something in place.
So aren't they supposed to inform? Aren't they supposed to inform me if there was a warrant?
No, they're not going to inform you that there's a warrant. Oh my God.
Well, I don't know the details.
I don't either.
They had a warrant, and the gentleman that you met earlier in the plainclothes.
Yes.
Right. And they were supposed to inform you of whatever, and then because it's a county warrant, that's how we became involved.
Yeah, they're going to give you like a 3-day head start to get out of town. They're going to send you something in the mail saying, we're coming to get you in 2 weeks. Does that. Oh my God.
Okay. Yeah.
They'll give you a 5-day head start to get up to go to Guatemala or something. I don't know. No, they're not going to tell you about the arrest warrant. Not going to.
Donna Adelson there, not going quietly. She has a lot to say to those officers, and she had a lot to say on jailhouse calls. We even know her son took the stand and said, my mom loves to talk. So now that she's behind bars awaiting an upcoming trial, here's our next question. There it is. Will Donna Adelson be testifying? Is she going to be taking the stand in this case? Let's bring back in our guests still with us, Tim Jansen and Joel Waldman. Great to have you both because you all have been watching this case, this trial, just the details of it. And from what you've seen so far, Joel, of Donna Adelson, how she's moved in her hearings, how she has kept in contact with so many people who've been connected to this case. What do you think the chances are that she is going to testify in her own defense?
Well, I've spoken to a lot of criminal defense attorneys who are much smarter than I, like Tim Jansen and others, and the consensus vote is that she is 100% going to testify because she has to explain away this cockamamie double extortion theory. Now, there was a moment during a pretrial hearing.
So she's charged with conspiracy and solicitation for the unaliving of, I think it's the son-in-law of this guy, Dan Markle. But, you know, I don't think she's probably ever been arrested before, so that's probably why she did stuff like that. But no.
I think it was her first hearing in Tallahassee, where Judge Stephen Everett, who's an excellent judge, had to basically admonish Donna and tell her to stop piping up. She was talking during the hearing, and you saw that video from the arrest. It's kind of the voice of privilege. How can you do this to me? What is the next step? How can this happen?
Hello, Jenny. How are you? Good to see you again. Just figured come on and do a live. I got the night off, so I'm out here doing a live, doing my shit. She seems like she's the one of those the smartest in the room. Yeah, she's yeah, she has to. She kind of has to take the stand. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't recommend it. But this is like a really weird. This one like another one of those really weird, bizarre cases. There's so many moving parts in this thing here.
It's happened to me. You hear her husband Harvey chiming in. So they're going to make her look demure. Tim can talk to this better. They're going to put a little bun up for her hair, I assume, some glasses sloping off her nose. But she will, I believe, take the stand.
Yeah, Tim, when we're watching her in that video, I mean, she is grabbing the phone.
So she's charged in the unaliving of her daughter's ex-husband. So
Away from officers. She has no fear about yanking it away from them, saying, you've got to get a warrant for this. And then when they tell her you're arrested for the murder of Dan Markle, her initial reaction is, oh, here we go. What do you think it's going to take to prepare her for a trial? Because I believe Charlie Adelson was pretty prepared when he testified.
Well, Charlie was over-prepared. He looked like he was scripted. The defense and his story didn't make sense, and it was too good to be true. Don is very calculating, very cold, very calm. You saw her. Most people being arrested by the FBI would be screaming, crying. No, she's asking legal questions. She's giving herself a defense of fleeing by saying, I didn't know there was a warrant. She absolutely has to testify for this conspiracy theory. And she also has to testify about this trip. She's going to have to be the one to say why she took this trip wasn't to flee. It was because she can't get a fair trial. My son didn't get a fair trial. And I'm trying to explain, I've been buying this trip for years. The problem she has is that when she found out who killed her son-in-law, ex-son-in-law, she then took her daughter and her 2 kids to be near the killers. And then she talked in codes all this time. And then when they were arrested by the...
It's absolutely unexcusable, man. It's just, people are really weird, man. People are crazy. They really hated this guy.
Fed by the state. She didn't go to the police and tell them about this extortion theory. So none of her story makes sense. She put her kid and her grandkids in danger. When she was able to come forward, tell the police about the extortion, she didn't do it. And then she talked in codes. Her conduct was clearly conspirator. She's going to have a hard time convincing a jury. I think she'll be better than Charlie, though. Charlie was over prepared. She's smart. I'll give her that. But she's not going to be credible.
That says something if you think she will be better than her son was, but a jury did not believe her son, so she certainly needs to go there if she has any chances of putting forth a defense. Joel Wallman, host of Surviving the Survivor podcast, and criminal defense attorney Tim Jansen, thanks so much for joining us. We have to get to a break. I'm Julia Janae, filling in for Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers here.
All right, so let's get out of this here. I don't know why my screen split like that. But yeah, something to hover. This, like I said, there's so many moving parts in this. It's hard to keep track of everything. But yeah, there's a lot of people involved in this case. There's so many. Like I said, there's so many different moving parts. Who knows? All right, so I'm going to go to this one here now. This is, everybody remembers this person here. This woman here, Susan Smith, is coming. Her parole hearing's coming up. So this is the prosecutor. If people don't know about Susan Smith, prosecutor in the case against Susan Smith joins Court TV and discusses her upcoming parole hearing. A jury has to choose. Jury chose to sentence Smith to life for unaliving her 2 young sons. When she blamed everybody else for doing it. Remember that? I think this is one of the first cases that I actually first got involved in. This happened a long time ago, but let me share this here and hold on a second. All right, so here's this Susan Smith prosecutor here. I don't think she's going to get parole, but who knows?
Welcome back to Court TV Live and opening statements in our spotlight this morning. Child killer Susan Smith, who is hoping her ex-husband won't block her upcoming parole. We got a very special guest doing everything he can to keep Susan behind bars. Now, Susan Smith was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison for the murders of her sons, Michael Alexander, back in 1994. Now, she told police that a black...
Remember this case? Remember this is like one of the most like... Oh my God! These poor kids. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare when these things happen and these families get brought back into these things for these parole hearings and stuff like that. It's just this woman here is just, she should never get out of prison ever.
Male had forced her out of her car and drove away with her 2 sons still inside. Now the car was found in a lake and the boys in.
Where these 2 boys? It's just like. This is the stuff that makes you really angry right here.
Side, Of course, it turned out that there was no mystery man and that Susan Smith was the only person responsible for this. They're her beautiful boys there now. Now, Smith reportedly told relatives that she has spent enough time in prison.
Hey, Mustang, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, this case here, it's just, did anybody believe her when she was saying this stuff back then? She sounded good. Like she came out and was, this is where I think women are a little bit better at this stuff than men are, because, women can usually see the crocodile tears more than guys can.
Prison, and she feels like she should be released. What do you think about that? I want to welcome on the show very special guest this morning. He was the solicitor for South Carolina's 16th Judicial District. You know him and love him for being one of our guest legal analysts, attorney Tommy Pope. Good to see you, friend. This case, it comes up a lot, as you know. You tried one of the most famous cases in the world of true crime. And now here we are. This woman is up for parole, and she wants her husband's support. Tommy, what can you tell us about this? What is her husband David's position, if you know?
David, during the 9 days she was claiming there was a carjacker.
Are they still married? The two of them are still married? I didn't know that.
David stood by her side, even though she was telling him the boyfriend she was trying to get would probably want to come visit. And he was supportive of her up till the end. There was a dual investigation with law enforcement. As you know, you always look at the family members in addition to looking for the carjacker. And so David's always been supportive, but when the truth came out, he was my rock when it came to seeking the death penalty, because ultimately, it's difficult to seek the death penalty against a female. It's difficult in a small town.
Don't you think it's weird how she didn't get that? That's so weird.
And ultimately, I sought the death penalty and she received life. But David's always been solid. He has not been vindictive. It's all about justice for Michael and Alex, and I respect that.
No, I know you do, Tommy. Tommy, what are the odds that she goes free? What do you think?
Julie, you've been in front of a lot of juries, and you never know what you think they're coming out with. And in certain extent, I think the probate parole board is similar, in that
that's what I thought. I thought they're not married anymore, but I'm always pretty much wrong, so I just have to ask. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like this they should have at least gotten that. She should never be released from prison. That's for sure.
They will take both sides. They will hear, her behavior in prison has mostly been self-centered. She's had sex with guards, all the things she's done. The flip side is she hadn't killed another inmate in prison or things of that nature. But I also think they'll look at the crime. For me, the most important is the sentence she received of life in 1995. The jury could not.
1995. Oh my God, I can't believe it's been that long. Holy crap.
Not be told that life didn't mean life. In other words, they were told, take life in your plain and usual meaning. So even afterwards, the jurors were saying, she'll have to sit in prison. She'll be remorseful about Michael and Alex, and she'll be there the rest of her life. Well, the two fallacies are she's clearly worried about Susan and her sexual relationships or other relationships, not about Michael and Alex. And again, the jury didn't know she should be eligible. So it's not from a vindictive standpoint, I don't think, with David. It certainly isn't with me. It's from a justice standpoint.
I just can't believe it's been that long. 1995. That's 20 years ago. No. Yeah. I might have to do the math. That's a long time ago.
Absolutely, Tommy. Well said. Those beautiful children. Michael, as I understand it, was 3 years old at the time, and Alex only 14 months old when she killed them both. The pain that.
Hope you're well, Miranda. Yeah, me too. Southern Girl, I feel really old now. 1995. Well, that was. Hey, Charlotte. Charlotte's in the house. 30 years. That's what I thought. Doing the math in my head here. Smoke coming from 30 years ago. God, I can't believe I'm actually more than 30 years old. It's just, doesn't seem like that long, I guess.
That certainly her husband David has felt, I'm sure, hasn't gotten any easier. And then now it's time, and she's trying to get him to support her.
Was it like grunge? Was grunge rock in grunge rock, right? It was. Yeah, it does. It's aggravating. It's the stuff that makes you angry. It's like, what this person did. Is Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought she was having an affair or something. What the excuses that she came out with, I remember, were just atrocious. Like, she was blaming everybody else but herself. She's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Toby, based on what you saw in the interactions, does that surprise you that all these years later she would be so bold as to try to get his help here?
No, it doesn't surprise me. Again, certainly they've got to.
This woman here is very manipulative. So, I think that's why the prosecutor here is saying it's possible, because she's probably trying to manipulate everybody to get out.
Be mental health issues. You and I talk about this all the time. Anybody that takes a life, there's something going on. But, we used to say that Susan, one definition in DSM would be histrionic. She's either the victim or the princess. And, this whole thing to me was contrived. If she gives up the kid, she's a bad mother.
You think she should be eligible? Charlotte's awesome. Good to see you, Charlotte.
But if the carjacker takes the kids, she's a victim and more worthy of Tom Finley, the paramour, the boyfriend, coming to rescue her. So, she put some thought into it of what ends were best for Susan. And I think that's consistently where she's lived her life, and, what the reason she reaches out to David.
And look at this handsome attorney. Look at him right here. You recognize that guy? Our control room is loving seeing this video of you, Tommy. They're all watching it right now and said, draw Tommy's attention to who we have on the screen here. America fell in love with you. You did such a brilliant job on this case. This was not an easy one to try, Tommy. That had to have been really upsetting, advocating for those kids, wasn't it?
It was, of course, I've tried a lot of cases, but I was also just a few years into office, as you saw the child that was in the courtroom. I was 32 at the time. I had gotten elected when I was 30. And I always joked, said I was kind of the Doogie Howser of prosecutors. And suddenly I'm dealing with the.
See, this is the perfect example. Like, you can't trust anybody when it comes to stuff like this. How many times do you see these people? They put up a good, front, and then all of a sudden come to find out they're the ones that are guilty. It happens all the time, every single time. Well, not every single time, but a lot of times. It happens in a lot of domestics too, where the boyfriend or the husband is actually the one out helping search and giving all of these press conference things. Come to find out he's the one that did it. You can't trust anybody.
Biggest case that we'd certainly ever seen here, and it was the same time OJ was going on, and then you couple that with, again, I've seen a lot of horrible things in my law enforcement career. I think the combination of the media, the combination of Susan dragging it out.
Yeah, I thought Greeno was in jail. I thought he was on the run, but
for the 9 days, where everybody hoped and felt that perhaps we'll find this car, we'll find this carjacker, even though from a law enforcement standpoint, carjackers don't take children normally. But anyway, there was the hope, and then it was dashed when we found out she did it selfishly.
She sure did. And we see more selfishness now as she's trying to get out of prison. And we'll see what happens when it's time for her parole hearing. I know we'll have many more questions for you. Tommy Pope, you're the best. Thank you so much for all of the case insight. And we'll look forward to seeing you again on Opening Statement soon.
That guy is going to just keep bothering people for the rest of people's lives. He's just you know, just a horrible piece of crap. Okay, let's go to this one here since we're down here. I have absolutely no respect for people like that. I just don't. Sorry. Okay, so this is the trucker thing again here, and this is part of the testifying. I don't know why people try to testify on their own behalf. It just doesn't go well ever. So I'll be getting more into this. This is another one of those long haul trucker guy here thing. Jason Palmer. He opted to take the stand, telling the jury about his background, his career as a truck driver. This is another one of those cases I'm going to be following here. Still trying to do some research on the long haul trucker stuff. So we'll listen to a little bit of this here.
Mr. Palmer, please state your name for the record,
Jason Palmer,
and please spell that.
JasonPalmer.
And are you the defendant in this case?
Yes, I am.
Tell the jury a little bit about yourself.
I know Snake can't stand Greeno.
Where did you grow up? What do you do for a living?
I grew up in Massachusetts, a little bit outside of Boston, and I am an owner-operator of an 18-wheeler.
Are you an over-the-road truck driver?
Yes, I am.
Do you have a primary residence other than your truck?
I do not.
Were you working at any specific company in October of 2022?
Yes.
And who was that for?
It was Hirschbach Motor Lines.
How long have you had a CDL license?
Since maybe the end of 2016.
Did you know Jessica Goodrich?
Yes, I did.
How did you know her?
She was my girlfriend for 9 years.
How long had you known her in total?
I've actually known her since probably
I like Rick. Rick's a pretty good guy. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I've been following Rick Snave for a long time. I gave up on Greeno a long time ago. He's, he's just whatever.
In late 90s.
That's why I don't get involved in the Delphi stuff, because it's just, it's a tragic case. It's a horrible case, but I think that case needs a trial. That's just my opinion. Greeno threatens Snake. Why would I don't think Greeno's got a chance against Snake. He threatened to chop up his daughter and send pigs. He's a wow.
When did you and Jessica Goodrich break up?
We broke up actually Valentine's weekend of 2020.
Did you ever get back together?
No.
So when she got in the truck with you in September of 2022, were you back in a boyfriend-girlfriend situation?
It was complicated. We had talked about it, but nothing was ever official.
It's Karen Lee. Hey, Karen Lee, how are you? Good to see you. Karen Lee's in the house. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I thought he was in prison. That's just that's what I thought. Then again, I don't follow the circus that much. I know Tom Webster had a live, what was it, yesterday or today? Karen's awesome. Good to see you, Karen.
Cool.
Okay. Now, you were together with Jessica for 9 years. Did you ever get engaged during that 9-year period?
Yes.
Did you love Jessica?
Yes, I did.
Now, the obvious question that everybody wants to know the answer to.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to those type of gratuitous preparatory comments on a direct examination.
Sustained. Just ask your questions, please.
Did you kill Jessica Goodrich?
No, I did not.
Like they're ever going to say yes, right? Like that's.
When is the last time you saw Jessica?
In my truck.
Can you give us a specific date that you saw her?
October 5th of 2022.
And
Hello, FARQ. Good to see you. FARQ's in here. I have absolutely no respect for anybody that doesn't pay child support at all. He was in Canada. They removed him. What happens in Canada stays in Canada. Is that how that goes? I'm not sure. Yeah, it is. It's amusing to a point. Threats are threats, man. They just. Oh, that's Vegas. Sorry. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
where was your truck located on October 5th of 2022?
I was at the pilot truck stop in Wildwood, Florida.
Walk us through the events that happened leading up to when you last saw Jessica.
That day.
More specific, more close in time to when she actually left.
Everything was okay. And then we got into an argument. She had seen a message come in through on my phone, and it just got her going again about me having a baby with Katie. That was a lot of our problems. And
this guy right here is not right in the head.
She would just go off over it. And that's what happened that day. And she ended up calling and talking to Katie, and it just continued and continued and continued until finally I had enough, and I made a comment to her, and she decided at that point.
This is the trucker Jason Palmer case. Spoiler alert! I think he got life. I think. Just going over a little bit of the test. I don't know why they put this guy on stand, but you know, when you lean like this, it's not good.
To leave my truck.
And what was the comment you made to her?
I told her that I would never be her, that I would never not see my child and give my child up. That it didn't matter what she did, I wasn't going to be a junkie loser.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
So she was asking you to deny your child?
Yes.
And you told her in no uncertain words that was not happening?
I did, yes.
So she made the decision.
The thing is, they think they're fooling people. You know, they're not fooling anybody, really. Especially when they take the stand. You know, if you take the stand, you better be the best actor in the world. This guy's not. He's not the greatest actor in the world, and he's just digging himself further and further in this. But this is another one of these. I'm going to be trying to get into the long haul trucker thing here. So apparently, there's about 800 unalivings that have been tied to long haul truckers across the country. And most of them are unsolved. I think they got a couple of them recently, but we'll get into that at some point next week or whenever. I do want to go over the Laureen call case next week. I'm going to try to deep dive that. She's been missing for about 30 years. She's from my state here in New Hampshire.
Decision to get out of your truck.
Yes.
In Wildwood, Florida.
Yes.
on October 5th, 2022.
Yes.
Do you recall about what time this may have occurred?
You've had a migraine for 3 days, cold truth? That sucks. I think that's going around. I've heard of other people having that.
I don't.
Do you usually have migraines for that long? Migraines are awful. I get them. My wife gets them. I don't get them nearly as bad as she gets them, but they're terrible. And it seems sometimes like nothing works.
The only thing I do know is it was dark. It was late evening, maybe.
What was she wearing when she got out of your truck?
She was wearing a pair of my shorts and one of my tank tops.
Why was she wearing your clothes?
Because she really didn't have any clothes.
What happened? Do you know what happened to her clothes?
Apparently, before.
Let me tell you, Southern Gal is freaking awesome. She's got a great channel. She did a great job tonight dealing with StreamYard. StreamYard's been having a lot of issues lately, but they seem to be doing a little bit better. They just upgraded all their systems, I think, so now they're charging people more for the services. But I think they're kind of over most of the bugs that they've had the last week or so. But Southern Gal's awesome.
Or she was with her sister. She stayed with her aunt that threw her out of her house and kept most of her clothes.
Okay. And by before Jessica was with her sister, what sister are you referring to?
Pamela Shays.
And we heard from Pamela Shays throughout this trial.
Yes.
When would Jessica have had, what type of belongings did Jessica have with her, if any, when she got out of your truck?
I couldn't tell you. It was like maybe a half a trash bag full.
See, sometimes they tell you, right, the best thing for a migraine headache is black coffee. But I've noticed that with migraines, coffee is like a double-edged sword. Sometimes it works really good, and then sometimes it just sucks. So you never know. My wife gets them really bad. She's usually, especially in the spring and summer months when she gets them, she's basically at the hospital for a few hours. And they always give her the wrong, I think it's tryptophan. They give her usually, and even though we've been through this for years and years and years, they always give her the tryptophan, and it sucks because it makes her worse. It gets her the like she's crawling out of her own skin type thing. It's and I tell them all the time, don't give her the tryptophan. Just give her the narcotic, and but nobody listens to me. So.
But I didn't look in to see what was in there.
I don't think they give the narcotic anymore, but they give the nausea pill and the Ativan, and that seems to at least take the stress out of the whole situation. That at least worked last time. I don't know if they're going to do that again, but I don't think they do the narcotic anymore. Probably not.
Would she have had a wallet when she got out of the truck?
Yes.
Did she have her cell phone when she got out of the truck?
Yes.
Did she have any other shirts or shorts that belonged to you?
Possibly. When she left, her stuff was in my duffel bag, so some of my stuff could have been in her bag, with her stuff.
Why would
Don't dumber
her
yourself.
stuff and your stuff be together in your duffel bag?
Oh, the chat is so awesome. Yeah, I'd probably recommend against the drilling of the hole in the head thing.
Because there was my cabinet was full of my clothes, so I used to just keep my overflow stuff, and she put her stuff in with my stuff. And also dirty laundry always gets thrown in the same spot.
I hate hospitals. I hate ERs. I literally have to be close to death to move and go to any type of medical facility. I'll take care of the problems here on my own. Because normally if I go to the emergency room, everybody on the planet's going to be there. It always seems to be that with me. Like if the very few times that I've gone, the entire planet is there. And I've walked out before. I just said, fuck this. I'm not going to. Yeah, I don't like. I don't mind doctors. It's just getting in there is part of the problem, right? Like they sit you down in a room for like 3 hours, and then they put you in another room for another 3 hours. Somebody comes and takes your vitals, and then you sit in that room for 3 hours, and then another 3 hours goes by, and you finally see a doctor. It's not worth it. It's just, I don't know. I'm rambling.
When Jessica got out of your truck on October 5th, 2022 in Wildwood, were you expecting her to come back?
Yes,
Why?
because she's done this before.
About when do you recall it happening before?
Exactly, I don't know. Maybe a week before. It happened twice before.
So you said about a week before, but Jessica was only with you for about a week. Is that correct?
No, she was with me longer than that.
Okay. When did you pick up Jessica in Massachusetts?
All right, this guy's guilty. I'm going to go on to something else here. This guy's pissing me off. He's just not answering questions, and some people are just really dumb. Hey, big fish, small pond. Good to see you. No trepanning allowed. Additional affection. Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm going to go to this one here. All right, so this is another one. Unaliving woman says unaliver was her own sister before, out police. This is the case of the Maryland woman. Culprit was allegedly unalived. Alyssa Gerald unalived from her injuries after being with a utility knife. So there you go. Being unalived in a boyfriend's driveway. Alyssa and her sister Brianna Giles got into a heated argument after a wedding on August 25th. So let's check this out here. Triggering.
Night at a wedding turns deadly when a Maryland woman fatally stabbed someone close to her after a heated argument.
Just like all siblings do, they have their spats, but rarely have I ever seen it taken this far. I mean, it's just pretty horrifying when you think about it.
Yeah, that guy was really annoying me. Anyways.
That this person, I mean, who does that? Where you bring a knife, you inject a knife into this equation, and you intentionally try to cut your sister.
According to authorities, they were alerted to the stabbing around 1:35 a.m. on Sunday morning. Police say they went over to a home in Cantonsville, Maryland, where they found 31-year-old Alyssa Giles bleeding out on the driveway of her home with injuries to her neck. Alyssa was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead about half an hour later. But while she was fighting for her life, she did clue police in on who stabbed her. As the officer asked Alyssa, who was it? She reportedly pointed and said right there, pointing her finger at her own 29-year-old sister, Brianna Giles. Investigators learned from a witness the Giles sisters visited him after the wedding they attended earlier that evening. The witness told police when the two arrived at his home around 8:30 p.m., they got into a minor argument, which continued to escalate throughout the evening. But sometime after 1 a.m., everything changed. The sisters were walking to their car. The witness told police he turned around to return to his home when all of a sudden he heard one of the sisters repeatedly say, "Oh my God." The witness said when he turned around, he saw Alyssa had collapsed to the ground and noticed the blood while Brianna Giles leaned against their car.
After police detained Brianna Jarrells and interviewed her about the stabbing, she asked detectives if they knew her sister's status, asking if
Again, this is the first I've heard about this case too, so I'm kind of learning about this as we go. Ear boiling.
if she was going to be okay. She reportedly blurted out statements about the incident without even being questioned yet. According to charging documents, Brianna said,
I'm being told constantly here that I have holes in my head, so maybe that happened to me. Not sure. Let's see, go right here into this.
I know it's real.
I know it's real. I actually used a utility knife. I never actually tried it. As a warning. Isn't that kind of like a confession?
I actually used a utility knife. I never actually tried. I pinned it up to her as a warning.
Stories like this one are obviously tough, but they're important to tell. And part of the reason we're able to do so is from our great sponsors like Upside. I want to take time to thank Upside for sponsoring today's Law and Crime YouTube takeover. So what's Upside? You can use the app at places like Shell, Exxon, and my personal favorite, Taco Bell.
Investigators found a yellow box cutter several feet from where Alyssa was located.
I have no time for commercials here.
She said she pinned the knife against her sister as a warning because she wanted her to be quiet. When detectives attempted to interview Brianna, she declined to speak with them. But when a detective told Brianna Alyssa died from her injuries, unprompted, she replied, "Oh, F, I thought I just nipped her," before then bursting into tears. Authorities seemingly had enough evidence to arrest and charge Brianna Jarrells. The 29-year-old was charged with first-degree murder in her sister's death. A lot to break down with this case. So joining me today is Palm Beach County District Attorney Dave Ehrenberg. Dave, always great to see you. This case is very troubling on many different levels. Alyssa Jarrells was a mother of three, stabbed to death by her own sister in a driveway after an argument. What's been your reaction to this case?
It's been shocking. You see a lot of horrible things as a prosecutor. I don't remember ever seeing two sisters going at it, and one of them intentionally grabs a knife to try to just nip the other one, just try to cut her, make her bleed a little bit, but then it goes too far. I mean, her admissions right there on the spot will surely be used against her in court.
And something that stood out to me was just the whole use.
Yeah, I get YouTube Premium too, but this is how they get away with it. You know, like if you go onto these sites, they're going to have commercials in their own. I don't know what I would do without YouTube Premium. It's I just hate commercials. I just can't stand them. I'd rather just give money and then just not have to deal with the commercials. Well, that's cool. They forgot I was in the room. It was horrible, but it did save. That's awesome.
Use of the knife in the first place. As Brianna Jarrells said to detectives, "Oh, I thought I just nipped her." We all hear again of sister or intense sibling rivalries and sibling arguments, but to hold a knife against your own sister to penetrate her skin, enough for her to bleed out and die, that just takes it to another level that's just beyond.
Yeah, and it's not like these were estranged sisters. They were going out together. They were hanging out. And just like all siblings do, they have their spats, but rarely have I ever seen it taken this far. I mean, it's just pretty horrifying when you think about it, that this person, I mean, who does that? Where you bring a knife, you inject a knife into this equation, and you intentionally try to cut your sister. So, when you're a prosecutor, the defendant who admits to intentionally trying to make someone bleed assumes the risk that person's going to bleed out. If you hit the wrong artery, you don't get to claim, "Oh, just an accident, it's not my fault. I just meant to make her bleed and not to kill her." No, you're going to go down for murder, and that's why she's being charged with murder. Now, I think that if she'll take a plea perhaps and shows great remorse, which she already has done that, maybe she can get a lesser charge of manslaughter. But right now, this is headed towards a trial for a murder charge.
And it's never an excuse, but how much do you think that alcohol may have played a role into this heated exchange that happened in the first place?
Well, though alcohol is not an excuse for a convict, it can be used to eliminate one of the crucial elements. So for first-degree murder, you need intent and you need premeditation. If you have a situation where
I'm telling you, man, I can see how this can happen. I grew up with two sisters, and when the two of those, my sisters used to go at it, man, it's just leave the house. They can be pretty destructive. One thing you don't do is try to get involved. Just stay the hell out of it. That's what I used to do. If they're fighting, it's a good time to go take a walk outside.
They're both drunk, and one of them, grabbed a knife and acted stupidly, then yeah, that could become a manslaughter case. So that's where the alcohol could come into play. But right now, without knowing more, it's hard to tell exactly what prompted this. Maybe it was alcohol fueled, but either way, it's not an excuse. She'll still face some consequences.
And are you surprised Brianna was charged with first-degree murder instead of second-degree murder? Or does Brianna bringing the knife prove enough that they're able to argue that it was premeditated?
First degree murder will be a little tougher to prove. You have to prove premeditation. The fact that she brought a knife into the encounter says something. It doesn't have to be premeditated over a long period of time. It could be just shortly before. And the question is, why did she bring a knife? If she can say, I brought a knife for some other reason, and then we got in a spat, and I was threatened myself, and I grabbed this knife and I tried to defend myself, and maybe she can get away with it. But secondary murder seems like the appropriate charge here. That's an intentional homicide, and you can charge someone with murder if they're in a commission of another crime. So if there's a battery,
especially if some of the biggest fights I've ever seen in my life were because somebody used somebody else's clothes without asking, that would be like World War III in the house. It's okay if you use the clothes, like, what are you doing wearing my shirt? If like guys, I don't think guys do that, do they? But it's okay if you ask and then use it. But if you don't ask and then wear it, then that's when it becomes a real problem. And
then as a result of the battery, someone dies, you can actually then charge someone with felony murder. So there are different possibilities for prosecutors here. I do think that we need to learn more about the facts as they come out, but I would be comfortable as a prosecutor in charging this defendant with murder as well.
And going back to the statements, Brianna made a lot of statements to detectives without even being asked. She admitted to using a utility knife. She admitted to thinking that she just nipped her sister. With all of those statements, how much of that will be used against her in trial?
Oh, all of it, unless she could say that she invoked her.
There's so many freaking trials going on right now, or going to be going on soon. It's just hard to keep up with them all.
Her right to a counsel or a right to remain silent, and they kept asking her questions. So based on what we know now, she blurted this stuff out. That's the best kind of confession for law enforcement and prosecutors, is when before this person is in custody, before they are even being questioned, they just blurt something out. Then there's really not a Miranda problem. So you can count on, unless there are facts here we don't know, you can count on those words coming back to haunt her in trial. She has made it much more difficult for herself to take a plea deal. She's made it much more difficult for herself to get an acquittal or a hung jury based on her words right then on the spot. That's like a truth-telling device. When you start blurting things out right at the moment, boy, they have a lot of validity when you do it then.
And a couple days ago, a motion was filed for a request of a speedy trial. In your opinion, are you surprised the case is even going to trial, especially given those statements that she had made in front of detectives? And how soon could that trial get underway?
Well, it's up to prosecutors whether they want to cut a plea deal. But because of those impromptu statements, those spontaneous statements, the prosecutors may say, hey, we got enough. We're going to trial. The only thing that the prosecutors would have to try to do is try to make this a murder case and not manslaughter. I could see that's her only way out here. I don't see this being a self-defense case. I don't see this being any reasonable doubt. I could see this perhaps because of the alcohol, as we've discussed. Maybe the elements are not all there for murder. It could be a manslaughter case. But either way, the prosecutors seem like they're intent on moving forward with a murder case. It's up to the defendant to try to, find some sort of plea deal or lesser charge, because they're now invoking the speedy trial rule, which means this thing is going to go to trial.
Yeah, they probably want you to go there to be a witness, maybe. I'd go on the cruise, though.
Sooner than later, and they are putting prosecutors on the spot to get this case tried, prepared really quickly. So it's going to be tougher for them to try to, delay and have long-term negotiations when they're saying, all right, prosecutors, we're going to make sure you're ready to try this case before we think you are. So it's a strategy that they're employing, but they may be employing that strategy straight to a murder conviction.
And given all the facts that we know right now, does Brianna, does she have any type of defense going forward in this case?
Unless she wants to say self-defense, but we don't see those facts. I haven't seen anything that showed that her life was at risk. In fact, her statements made it seem like she didn't think she was at risk, that she was the aggressor. I think perhaps the best thing for her is just try to get a less.
Hello, Astro from space. Good to see you.
Of manslaughter, saying that this was a heated exchange while they're both drunk, and there was no intent to cause great damage. I mean, but the fact she said she just wanted to nip, she intentionally took out the knife and tried to cut her sister on the neck. I mean, come on. I mean, that's why she's being charged with murder. So
did she say accidentally? Is that what he just said?
Well, I think at best she's looking at manslaughter, and at worst she can spend the rest of her life behind bars.
And do you think there's any possibility, say she is convicted, that parole might be an option maybe down the line?
Well, I'm not sure that parole, how much the state law where this took place, where there's parole. Like in Florida, for example, we done away with parole. There is no parole. So I don't know what the law is over there for parole, if she's eligible. But this is the type of case that could end up with a parole early release if there's good behavior, if the circumstances show that she's really remorseful, and if the family members want it. I mean, the family members will be important here because they're going to give their victim impact statements at the trial, and they will say how this death.
Good to see you, Astro from space. Hope you're having a good night. Just talking true crime here.
Affected them. And if they say that the defendant here would never have tried to harm our beloved sister, friend, daughter, then mother of three, then perhaps that could influence a judge to go lighter on the sentence. The family will play a big part in sentencing here.
That brings me to my next question. It's obviously hard and very heartbreaking that their family will never be the same after this. Alyssa is dead and her sister is behind bars for her murder. I'm sure you've spoken with a number of family members who have kind of been in that same scenario as well too. What does that do to a family, and what could justice look like for their family?
These types of things destroy families. It's one of those things that we don't pay attention to. We see there was one death here, but really now you have children growing up without a mother.
I'd love to go on a cruise too, but you always hear these horror stories where you go on a cruise and the food is no good and everybody ends up getting, some sort of a gastro thing. But yeah, I'd love to go on a cruise. That'd be awesome.
Or you have a family with a hole in it, and it's another one of the family members who committed this atrocity. So you could say that there's more than one death here. Really, there's another death in the defendant. Her life is over. And for the family members, their lives will never be the same again. That's why we have victim witness coordinators who are used to speaking with families. They're like part psychologists and part therapists, because you can't go through the criminal justice system alone. That's why we have these.
Just another horrible case, something that probably shouldn't have happened. Just awful, just terrible.
Folks to help walk the victims and their families through these cases.
All right, Dave, great. And
people will never be the same after this here. Okay, so we went through this last night. I'm going to go through this again. This is the Sandra Birch.
A former Massachusetts.
And they finally brought charges against this guy here from the Staunton Police Department, Massachusetts. This guy's just such a piece of shit. He just really is. And finally, I don't know if it was great police work or the Fed stepping in, but they brought charges against this guy here. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's another arrest coming down the pike here for this. But so this guy here was grooming this Sandra Birchmore. I've been following this case forever. And I think the reason why they started to look into this case a little bit more was because the families were, I think they still are, bringing forth a civil case against this police department here. But anyways, so he groomed this girl for years, and then she got pregnant. I think she first got a miscarriage, and then she got pregnant again, and he just didn't want anything to do with it. So he's being suspected of unaliving her and trying to cover it up. And here we go.
It's cop now charged with murder in the death of his pregnant mistress, who he allegedly started grooming and having sex with when she was just 15. There's a lot to unpack in the case against ex-cop Matthew Farwell, but here's the main takeaway. 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore's death was ruled a suicide in 2021, and now prosecutors say it was murder. And there's a laundry list of incriminating evidence that puts Farwell at the scene of the crime the day Birchmore died. Other evidence shows motive, and even more evidence proves that he allegedly had sex with her when she was just a kid, multiple times. All this is laid out over a 45-page affidavit in the federal indictment against Farwell. So let's jump right in.
I should probably download that affidavit. I probably should have done that today, but this is just another one of those horrific. This poor, I call her a kid because she's just a kid. This just sucks.
But not before we hear from our expert defense attorney. What does he have to say about Farwell's case?
I don't know how he's going to come up with a defense.
More from him later, but first, let's sift through this affidavit. It's pretty long, but here are some of the most important bombshells that were revealed. We begin with just the basics. You may be wondering how these two knew each other at all. Well, that takes us back to 2011, when Birchmore was just 13 years old. She was part of the Stoughton, Massachusetts.
So this whole case is very close to the Karen Reed case. And that's what kind of, I don't want to say it started bringing this case up again, but it didn't help. Yeah.
Massachusetts Police Department's Explorers program. It works to give kids an inside look at the criminal justice system and provide them mentoring and hands-on experience from officers. It was through this program that Birchmore got connected with Matthew Farwell and his twin brother, William Farwell. Also another officer, Robert Devine. Now, these officers allegedly began grooming Birchmore when she was only 13. This grooming culminated in Farwell.
So this grooming culminated in, I don't know how to say that online, at Birchmore on April 2013 when she was only 15 years old. 27 years old, unbelievable. 2021.
Well, raping Birchmore in April 2013 when she was only 15 years old.
They were talking about the consent in Massachusetts, I think, is 16. So that might be a possible defense, maybe. I don't know.
At the time of this assault, Farwell was 27 years old. Birchmore writes about all this in her journal, but Farwell writes about it too via text. On February 21st, 2019, Birchmore and Farwell had a text message conversation about Farwell taking Birchmore's virginity. Birchmore told Farwell that she was happy that
he took it. Unbelievable. The big thing to get to be the first. It's unbelievable. Oh my God, this is so awful.
That he took it. Later in the same conversation, Farwell acknowledged that it was a big thing to be the first. Here's some of their texts about this. Birchmore writes, "Had butterflies so bad the day you took my virginity." Farwell replied,
2015. Okay, so this is just the grooming here. I had butterflies so bad the day you took it. Me too. It was such a big day. Unbelievable. Ugh.
"Me too. It was such a big day." And here's some back and forth. Birchmore says, "Still know the date to this day." "Really?" "Yes." Smiley face. "That's not a date. I'll ever forget. It was April 10th, 2013. Smiley.
Who does this? Who does this stuff? Like, this is just ridiculous. Thank you, Southern Gal, for the essaying. I didn't know how to say that.
Face. Best day of my life. And she puts a face with a heart emoji. Farwell then replies, me too. This comes up again on June 19th, 2020. Birchmore writes, I'm glad you agreed to take my virginity though. And Farwell agrees, writing, me too. LOL, if I pushed, I absolutely could have effed you without condoms from day one. Now here's Birchmore's response. Probably if you really pushed it.
This is triggering. Very triggering.
I was kind of scared to say no in the beginning, not knowing how you'd take it. So yeah, you would have gotten no condoms, LOL. In February 2020, Farwell describes pinning Birchmore down during sex and asks her, will you say, Matt, stop. I'm 13. I'm not ready for this. OMFG, please stop. In other texts, he asked Birchmore to act like she's being raped when they're having sex, which, by the way, they allegedly had while Farwell was on the job, working as an officer with the Stoughton Police Department. To cover this up, Farwell falsely represented that he had worked certain hours, which in turn, and in fact, he was not working. They apparently had sex in his squad car and in public parking lots like Costco or Five Guys. It's important to note that during this time, Farwell was married, and by October 2020, his wife was pregnant with their third child.
That's a good question, though. Where were the parents? But I'm pretty sure this guy was trying to cover this up. Yeah, this case is, but the family's been fighting for this for years. I forget the name of the person who's been out front on this, but it was one of her friends, I think. But this guy here, I wouldn't be surprised if he did this to other girls too. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, I'm pretty sure other people are going to get arrested too at some point, but we'll see.
All of this led to Birchmore presenting Farwell with an ultimatum. Farwell would have to agree to engage in unprotected sex with Birchmore with the goal of conceiving a child. And in return, Birchmore would not disclose their relationship. She even sent Farwell a photo of her ovulation schedule, and they shared planning to have sex during specific times of her cycle. Then, on December 28, 2020, Birchmore sent Farwell a text message informing him that she was pregnant. She sent him
Thank you, Astro from Space. Appreciate it.
a photo of a poster she made to celebrate the pregnancy. This was
I probably should care about the subscriber thing. I just don't. I'm glad to have the people I have. That's for sure. Yeah, this guy's a piece of dog shit. Just literally, just like that horrible human being down there in Florida, Stephen Stearns. But this is a cop. This is part of Massachusetts' finest.
was his response, quote, I literally have nothing to say right now. How could you express that in text when I said I don't appreciate it? Farwell alleged that Birchmore forced him to have unprotected sex when he knew full well what time of the month she was ovulating. After news of her pregnancy, he became aggressive, and Birchmore told at least 3 people that Farwell became physically violent when they discussed her pregnancy. As she moved along in her pregnancy, by all accounts, Birchmore was excited. She shared the news with Farwell, like her due date, when she had ultrasound appointments, and her plans for a gender reveal. His text responses during this time were unresponsive or dismissive. Then, on January 3rd, 2021, one of Birchmore's friends called the Stoughton Police Department, referencing a sexual relationship between...
Yeah, I agree, Astro from Space. This is, I grew up in Massachusetts, so I kind of... Yeah, I think so too. I think they did they pass away before this or after this? I'm not sure. I forget now.
Farwell and Birchmore. His response was extreme anger and sending texts like, quote, why would she call and drop my effing...
Why would she call and drop my... Oh my God.
named Sandra. Like, what do I have to do with you not giving her something? Like, you have no idea how bad what she did.
I'm just glad the feds got involved in this because this case would have kept going on and on and on. They literally the initial autopsy was an S. It wasn't considered a M, but everybody knew it. I mean, it's not like this was a secret. I don't know why the medical examiner said that, but because that might be a problem in court. But
is. Farwell's coworker at the police department later told authorities he threatened them, ordering them to never speak of this call again. Then things seemed to change. Farwell came over to Birchmore's apartment and showed interest in her pregnancy. He even looked around her apartment in the closet and the bathroom. According to court documents, officials believe that Farwell's shift in demeanor
in Massachusetts, it's got to be like all hell's going to break loose for the feds to get involved. It's not like I mean, they have their own place. Massachusetts is a commonwealth, so they don't have to do anything. But to get the feds involved in Massachusetts, it's got to be something important. But I'm glad they did, because this case again. But I think the fact that they were going to go to a civil trial here to sue the city and the state, I think that's probably why they decided to get back into this case. I mean, I can't be 100% sure of that, but seems awfully suspicious that all of a sudden, this stuff is starting to come out now.
On or about this date was his attempt to appease Birchmore until he could kill her. Part of that plan included asking Birchmore to give him a key and keep it secret. Another part of that plan was inspecting various.
Okay, so they passed away before she met him. I thought they were alive. I wasn't sure. I don't know.
Rooms of Birchmore's apartment, including the closet, to determine whether they contained items or presented options for how and when to kill Birchmore. That allegedly happened on February 1st, 2021. According to court docs, security camera video from Birchmore's apartment shows her picking up a DoorDash order at 5:01 p.m. on February 1st. 4 hours later, Matthew Farwell arrives at 9.
Must have been cleaning snow off a car or something like that. It looks like a
9:14 p.m. the same day. He's seen entering through the main door and then goes up the elevator. You'll note he's wearing a COVID-19 mask, but witnesses later told investigators Farwell rarely wore a mask and actually was against it. Less than an hour later, Farwell is caught on security camera video once again, leaving the apartment. On February 4th, a wellness check was called, and that's when first responders found Birchmore's body in her apartment. She was wearing the same clothes as wearing a COVID-19 mask. Court docs, security camera video from Birchmore's apartment shows her picking.
Yeah, that's snow. So she was probably trying to clear some snow off of something or
up a DoorDash order at 5:01 p.m. on February 1st. 4 hours later, Matthew Farwell arrives at 9:14 p.m. the same day. He's seen entering through the main door and then goes up the elevator. You'll note he's wearing a COVID-19 mask, but witnesses later told investigators Farwell rarely wore a mask and actually was against it. Less than an hour later, Farwell is caught on security camera video once again, leaving the apartment. On February 4th, a wellness check was called, and that's when first responders found Birchmore's body in her apartment. She was wearing the same clothes as February 1st, the day Farwell came to visit. Birchmore was found unresponsive, seated with a.
Hey, Gail, good to see you. Good to see Gail Hurd in here. I really appreciate everybody staying up so late. Yeah, this was, I grew up in Massachusetts when I would say about 5% of law enforcement was basically on payroll from either the Irish or the Italians.
Duffel bag strap around her neck. Initially, Birchmore's death was ruled a suicide. The medical examiner noted that her hyoid bone was broken. That's the U-shaped bone at the front of the neck. And the hyoid bone has become a major part of her case because even though an ME initially said Birchmore died by suicide, A broken hyoid bone isn't indicative of suicide. In the affidavit filed just this week, prosecutors reference a doctor, William Smock, who has
This is going to be a tough case. This is going to be, this is definitely going to be a tough case. When you're going against law enforcement, it's always, a tough case because they get the best lawyers. This is not going to be an easy one to convict, that's for sure.
More than 40 years experience on the job. Dr. Smock's review of hundreds of cases of hangings in the forensic medical literature found no reported cases of hyoid bone fractures in seated women. Fractures of the hyoid bone are more commonly seen in strangulation.
The sitting hanging is also called an incomplete, meaning only partial body weight is applied to the neck.
Assault, and in hangings with full body weight applied to the ligature, but not seated hangings. This echoes what we reported earlier this summer when famed doctor and forensic pathologist Michael Bodden reported he believed Birchmore didn't die by suicide. When I reported on Dr. Bodden's findings, I spoke to forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan. Here's what he had to say about the hyoid bone.
That is an atypical injury that you have in a hanging. That means it does
right. I mean, yeah, they always cry in court. Everybody always cries afterwards, and there's always a white vehicle.
It's not occur.
I guarantee you, part of the defense is going to be whether she was 15 or 16. I guarantee that. The prosecution is going to have to prove that stuff was taking place before she was 16. Not saying they can't, but that'll be a contentious thing, I think, because I think 16 is the consent age.
You have to have sufficient amount of velocity in order to make that bone fracture, and that's what we're looking at here.
On February 6th of 2021.
I gave you a wrench, Gail. It's always good to have you in here. Farwell told the officers that he was involved in a sexual relationship with Birchmore, but he claimed the relationship. See, this is going to be they're going to have proof.
Farwell was interviewed by Mass State Police and told officers that he was involved in a sex.
I mean, it's pretty horrible even at 16, but the law is the law, right? I mean, but they're going to contest this thing here, the 2020.
Sexual relationship with Birchmore, but he claims the relationship only began in 2020. And based on the text we just referenced, that's simply not the case. After all this, Farwell was outspoken.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, if he's 27 and she's 16, that's no good either. I mean, the law, the law matters in the courts, right? But they must have some evidence that she was 15, because they probably wouldn't have brought charges against him.
Spoken about the allegations, denying all of them. He did, however, resign from the Stoughton Police Department in 2022. So that's the lengthy backstory that brings us to this week when Matthew Farwell was officially indicted in Birchmore's death. And while he's accused of sexual assault of a minor, tampering with evidence, and wire fraud, there's one major count that the feds are after: killing a witness or victim. Here's where we bring in our expert guest, criminal defense attorney Adam Conta. I'll start off with the question that everyone is asking: why would it have taken so long for an arrest? This happened way back in 2021, and now there's an arrest. Why so long?
Yeah, I think that's really a great question, and it's one that the Stoughton Police Department is going to have to answer. The fact that this took 3 years to get to this point, when it seemed like there were some really pretty clear inconsistencies in the fact that it was ruled as suicide versus what the evidence was plainly showing, is sort of inexcusable. I mean, you have the fact that she had set up a potential newborn baby shoot for this upcoming pregnancy. She had a load of laundry that was mid-cycle. These aren't the activities of someone normally associated with being on the precipice and then following through with a suicide. So these questions should have been asked right away. What's interesting is that the FBI says they're going to cooperate with the state and local authorities to see if they want to file any state charges. But that's not really the way it works. To me, that says that the FBI is saying,
So I'm gonna bring out a map here. Hold on a second. I'm gonna in a second. I want to. So here's, this is Boston right here. That's where I grew up in Revere. That's where they apprehended him. They apprehended him actually in Revere. Revere and Winthrop is right over in here too. So if you're ever in Revere, Massachusetts, go to Kelly's. And this is starting right here, and Canton is right here, so they're very close. So that's where the Karen retrial took place here, and they're starting right there. So that's, it's basically due south of Boston here. I don't know if it's considered Boston. Boston is like a lot of different towns, which basically consists of in Boston. They consider Brookline, Boston, Somerville, Revere, all of these towns. So I think Staunton is out of that vicinity, but that's where that is. All right, so let's go back to this here. What was I doing right here? Okay, sorry.
to the state that they didn't do their
I was like give people an idea of where we're at.
job in investigating this properly, so they had to take it over and sort of, oh, by the way, if you want to add some charges, you can, but this is our investigation now. So I think they had their chance. I think the state had their chance, and they just didn't do it.
Hey, listen up. I have something you're not going to want to miss. Today, Upside is sponsoring Long Crime's YouTube takeover. Passionate about the steps in the app to get paid. Every gallon on your first tank of gas.
Oh my God, shut up.
Doesn't really add up, kind of a list of several things that don't really make sense. So why then would a medical expert in Massachusetts have initially ruled it a suicide if other people are saying doesn't look that way?
Well, I mean, that's a tricky question because there's an innocent answer and there's a not so innocent answer. And
you would think, right? Like you would think it'd be a slam dunk, but Saugus, yeah, I used to work in Saugus. Some of the greatest Greek restaurants are in Lynn, Massachusetts. I know that for sure. I love Greek food. Yes.
certainly not here to cast aspersions on the ME over there, the police department, or anything like that. But if I was her family, if I was Miss Birchmore's family, I would have some really, really serious questions that are going to be answered in the course of a civil lawsuit. Because just because it looked like that it was a suicide, meaning that there was a duffel bag, the hand.
Yeah, I would literally give my house for some Lebanese food right now. About 20% Lebanese. So yeah, some grape leaves, some tabbouleh, some kibbe, some any of that would be great right now. That would be. It's really hard to find Lebanese food in New Hampshire. So we need my mom to come up and make some.
Handle of a duffel bag that was made to look like it was choking her to cover up what now seems like a strangulation. You're going to have to have good excuses from several departments within a police department where 3 officers are at least alleged.
I mean, here's the thing, right? This person here should be alive today, right? The victim. I don't care about the piece of shit that unalived her, but it would be nice if he got convicted. But this, not to mention the, baby she was carrying. So it's just, that's honestly why I'm here. These people need some answers for this stuff here. It's just, it just sucks. She has no reason not to be here.
Course of a civil lawsuit.
All because some, piece of dog shit couldn't keep things in his pants. It's just, this is just sad. It sucks.
Because just because it looked like that it was a suicide, meaning that there was a duffel bag the handle of a duffel bag that was made to look like it was choking her, to cover up what now seems like a strangulation. You're gonna have to have good excuses.
Oregon? Portland, Oregon? I got to go to Portland, Oregon. Then I need to move tomorrow. Funny story. I don't want to bother you guys too much, but we were whole family, me and my two kids and my wife were going to a pizza place. My mom was supposed to come up and make Lebanese food that day, but she was late getting in. So I was hungry anyway. So we went out for pizza and I got a phone call from my sister and she's like, Mom's here. She's making Lebanese food. So we're just about to sit down at a pizza place. And I'm like, okay, everybody get back in the truck. We're going, we're going to my sister's and I love grape leaves, man. It's
from several departments within a police department where 3 officers are at least alleged to have had a sexual relationship with this woman. Well, I mean, Mr. Farwell has straight up admitted it. The text messages are not up for dispute. The nature of the relationship is not up for dispute. The other 2 officers, I will say, they have denied it. But you're talking about a woman where 3 officers within the same police department are alleged to have had relations with, and now it looks like there was very obvious evidence pointing towards a homicide instead of a suicide. There's
in my opinion, though, you know, if I could have anything, it would be like Portuguese food. I love Portuguese food. Is like I had a friend when I lived in Boston, and his mom was Portuguese, and she used to make the greatest freaking food on the planet. Portuguese food is oh, it's just great.
There's big time questions. This is just the beginning of this investigation.
You touched on something that is wild throughout this entire affidavit, the text messages that we can read verbatim, the conversations between Matthew Farwell and Sandra Birchmore. And I was pretty shocked reading all of these, especially with his background as a police officer. So why would someone of the law who assumes to understand it, why would he write all these things down in black and white, knowing that it could come back to haunt him?
Well, I mean, criminals aren't the smartest people sometimes, and you don't think about the arrest and the evidence that's being preserved for an arrest. You think about the moment and what you're trying to do.
See, these people right here, I think this was, I'm not sure about this, don't quote me on this, but I think these are the people that were standing outside the courthouse here when the Karen Reed case was going on. I could be wrong, but I know there was a whole bunch of them there. This is the person right here that's been an advocate for her this whole time, right where my cursor is here.
And so this is someone who was in a trusted position, was a youth leader for the Explorers Club, an organization designed to encourage police activity in youth, to try to get them involved early, to become police officers maybe. He started grooming her when she was 12 years old. Sex with her started when she was 15 years old. As a defense attorney, I cross-examine hundreds of police officers. And there are some defense attorneys who just think that all police officers are bad people, that the police should be defunded and all of that. I'm not in that camp. I think most police officers are really, really good people who are trying to help and are genuinely doing their best. But this is a prime example of someone with ill intent, someone in this position of power.
The Portuguese just have a way of doing things with beans that nobody else can do. Like they can take just your regular bean recipe and make it into like one of the greatest foods you'll ever eat. It's so weird.
That wants to do bad can do tremendous bad. There is so much power to destroy a lot.
I think it's got a lot to do with the spices that they use in I could be wrong. I've never tried to actually make. Thank you, Miranda. You're awesome. Miranda Lee's awesome.
Lives, families, and communities when you are put in this position and you do the wrong things with it. And this just goes to show the worst example of what can happen in that situation.
While Farwell is indicted on only one count, the murder of a victim or witness, Conta says there's enough evidence to potentially convict him of the other allegations too. Putting the murder aside.
Yeah, like I said, there's going to be. I can't be positive because it depends on what kind of a deal they make with the other people. But there'll be at least one other arrest in this case, in my opinion. But you know how these things work. They usually, cut a deal with one of them to testify against the other one and stuff like that. I hope not, but I wouldn't be surprised.
For just a sec, if we focus on the sexual assault allegations, I know most of the time we would want to have some sort of DNA.
Sorry, Gail. Oh, sorry. Oh.
Proof of this sexual assault taking place. And obviously this happened starting back, I believe, in 2013. So it was a while ago. We don't have the DNA evidence, but we do have him texting, talking about taking her virginity or having sex with her. Are those texts enough to convict him on these charges?
This is what we need in Flora, right? This is exactly what we need for Flora. We need shit like this. We need people out there picketing. We need people out there just bringing up a freaking storm, right? Just not letting this case go away. Same thing with Flora. That's the only way you get things done.
Well, I certainly think so. I mean, because it's not just those. If we look at those in a vacuum, they're terrible.
Have a good night, Cold Truth. Thank you so much for coming in. For those who don't know who Cold Truth is, she has a freaking great channel. She's awesome. She's very smart, very intelligent. She's just great. She's got a great channel. Absolutely. I hope you feel better.
The fact that he took her virginity at 15 is disgusting. The fact that after that he's texting her, and as you said, in black and white, that he wants to do role playing, which is tantamount to rape fantasies, and wants her to pretend she's 13 years old, is so viscerally disturbing that when a jury knows that that person is willing to do that, it's certainly not a leap to believe that he would kill her then to cover it up. And while there's no DNA evidence specifically to an assault, the fact that there's a pregnancy and that he's the father of that child is certainly DNA evidence of a sexual relationship. And the text messages corroborate that it happened prior to her being 16. And on top of that, he was found to be searching how to delete information off of his phone to try to get rid of information that they had sex prior to her being 16. So this is someone who tried to cover up his steps at every turn. And so I think when you put those things together, yes, these text messages along with those other items is going to be enough to go forward.
Then there's the accusation of wire fraud. This one was kind of crazy to me because he says straight up in his texts, hey, I'm on the clock. And then he meets up with her to have sex, some of which during the time that she's under.
I mean, I'm not a big conspiracy guy myself. Not everything's a conspiracy, but what's the old saying? If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's probably a duck. This is definitely a cover up here.
Age, but now prosecutors are alleging he committed wire fraud.
But at the end of the day, as long as they get it solved, as long as they get, I guess it makes it okay.
Because he was supposed to be working as a police officer, not having sex in the Costco parking lot. Or
the thing about this case, though, is I think a few people knew about this stuff while it was going on, so it probably could have been prevented if something would have been done while she was alive. That's the sucky thing here in this case.
Or 5 guys parking lot with this underage girl. So what do you make of those allegations?
Well, I think it's just icing on the cake more than anything. I mean, they're obviously not trying to convict him on wire fraud. This isn't a Scarface situation where they're trying to get him on tax evasion because they can't get him on the good stuff. They have all the evidence they need, it seems like, from this very detailed filing. They have all the evidence they need to convict him on killing a witness, which she was, killing a victim, which she was, which they're already going to be able to get a minimum.
Thank you, Charlotte. So Flora is a case in Indiana. It happened a year before the Delphi case. If you've heard of the Delphi case, with Galen and her 4 girls, it was deemed it wasn't deemed an arson at first, but later on they deemed it an arson, and they still haven't solved the case, and it doesn't seem like they give a shit. So that's why I always bring that up. That and the Timothy D's case, all of these cases, man. That's people talk about social media all the time and how bad it can be, but the good news with social media is that it can do a lot of good too.
Sentence of life in prison. So I think the wire fraud is just sort of so the jury knows the breadth of what this wrongdoing is, that this isn't a person who just had a violent outburst that maybe you could say there was reasonable doubt on.
I can't stand that guy, Adam Montgomery. He's another piece of dog shit. That poor girl, Harmony Montgomery, man. These are the things that keep me up at night, man. That poor little kid.
And this is a person who has shirked his duties and the law for a long period of time. And this is a habit for him that he's fine ignoring what the rules are. He's fine ignoring what the law is, as long as it ultimately benefited what his sinister needs were.
So talking about the sexual assault and now moving on to the murder, again, it kind of goes back to the text messages, because we have him talking about strangulation within their sexual relationship. Apparently this is something that he likes. And we have multiple different occasions that he's talking about how he's going to strangle her or punish her with this sex. And then what happens?
There's a reason why I'm here, because this stuff here, it sucks to talk about. I mean, this stuff, especially when it comes to little kids, it literally pulls on your heartstrings. If you got any type of human quality at all, when it comes to kids and people that can't defend themselves, even the Sebastian Rogers case out there, autism, you want answers to these things, but at the same time, it sucks to talk about. So that's the reason why I'm here, to get some justice for these people. And that's why I give everybody wrenches. If you guys got channels, anybody that's got a good channel, Cold Truth, thank you, Charlotte. Southern Gal's awesome. She does great work on the missing people's cases. Honeybee, anybody that's got a good channel, the more attention we get out there with these cases, the better, because they're not going to be solved if we don't. Just the way it is.
How she dies, could we kind of infer that one could connect to the other, that he'd strangled her in the past and then he did it once again?
Well, you certainly can, and I think that that's something that will naturally happen, but the prosecutor,
I mean, I know the big media cases are important too. I'm not saying they're not, but it's these other little cases that don't seem to get the same spotlight attention. What is going on here? My son was almost a Harmony in his. Oh my God, that's so horrible, Jenny. Oh, that's awful.
is going to actually have to be careful that they don't rely too heavily on inferences, and because there's so many examples of people in the public sphere and just throughout the course of the Me Too movement where it was, well, these are my fantasies, but that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to follow through on them. I'm free to express my dark fantasies, but it doesn't mean that I act on them. And so they have so much evidence here that those were not just fantasies, that they were in fact signs of a darker sort of a darker person there, even darker than grooming and having sex with an underage person, that I think that they're going to have so much to be able to corroborate it. I mean, she's got friends who came forward and said that prior to her death, that she had complained about him coming over and getting increasingly violent and pushing and shoving and even putting her in a chokehold. So the fact that he had a proclivity for liking sex that involved choking, the fact that he choked her aggressively prior to her death, and the fact that it matches up with how she was ultimately killed, I think they're all going to work together. But I don't think that the prosecution should ignore the others because it just seems so likely that he would have done it.
I know we keep going back to incriminating evidence, but there's 45 pages worth of it basically in this.
Thank you, Astro from Space. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you for subbing for sure. Yeah, I'm very it's just the people that can't protect themselves, domestic violence, domestic abuse, any of that stuff, especially kids, because kids, I mean, they didn't ask to be born into that shit, that's for sure. It's just it's annoying. You just want to do something.
Affidavit. And here's another major one that stood out to me. So on her phone, that health app that you have that shows how many steps you take per day or you're moving around, apparently it was going, she was moving while he came up into the apartment. Then it stops and he's in the apartment, according to security video, for another 45-ish minutes. Her phone has no movement. She is not moving after that time. What do you make of that? Is that a win for the prosecution in terms of her potentially being murdered by him?
Well, again, it doesn't look good, but if I put on my defense attorney hat, that can be solved in one simple question, right? Well, what happens if you put a phone down? Does it continue monitoring your movements? No, it doesn't. So they can kind of, all they need to say is that she put the phone down and that's why it stopped moving, versus it means that she was necessarily murdered during that time.
There's an important part of the case we have to remember: Farwell's history with law enforcement.
That's why you got to have a lot of respect for people like Arctic True Fox and Southern Gal and the Think Tank and some of these other creators that just are constantly getting the word out for some of these missing persons cases, because you'd never hear about them. You literally, years ago, you used to have to wait to buy a milk bottle to get the faces on it. Nowadays, social media is so much more present. And I feel like it's a great tool because, other than that, these cases just get, you go to any case, any state cold case file, and there's hundreds of missing people, hundreds of cases that are cold. The more the word gets out, the more pressure you put on law enforcement. Because law enforcement, for the most part, is pretty good. But they can't dwell on a case for years and years and years. There's other cases that go on. So, but some of these people need answers. And you see them, they're solving cases every single week. I see it all the time. So just get the word out there. That's all that matters.
Backtracking just a little bit, going back to the scene of the crime. Again, initially it was ruled a suicide. Now people are saying that it was in fact a murder. I'm wondering if his background as a law.
Who is Doodlebug? Is that somebody that I know? I'm pretty sure I'm subbed to him, or whoever that is.
Enforcement officer could have helped him to stage the scene. I mean, he even mentioned in some of the texts to her, I'm out on a case, somebody has died, there's a murder. So he's obviously been to murder scenes in the past. Could that have given him a leg up, so to speak, on creating this facade that it was a suicide?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He knows what they will be looking for, meaning the police. He knows where other people have failed in their attempts to cover up crimes. And so he has both the planning, the execution, and the cleaning. She has experience with.
Thank you, Southern Gal. I'll have to check that out. I'm pretty sure I'm subbed to her, though. Honeybee's awesome, too. Honeybee does great work on Flora, for sure. Honeybee's an awesome person.
All three, and seeing how people have succeeded and failed at each of those three parts of a crime. And so he's a tremendous leg up that a normal citizen wouldn't have in a situation like this.
If all this isn't enough, all roads seem to lead back to Farwell and Birchmore's relationship.
Truth and Justice, too. Who's the other one that I've been watching? Lighting Their Way Home is great. All of these channels.
And her ultimatum. Either they willingly conceive a child together or she tell his wife. Let's also note that just 13.
I want to look at this again because it seems like there's something here. I don't want to be one of those conspiracy guys, but it seems like there's something in this guy's pocket.
Hours after Farwell left Birchmore's apartment, what we know is the final time anyone saw her.
See how he's kind of holding his jacket here by putting his hands in? It looks like there's something in here.
Alive, Farwell's wife then gave birth. Hours after Farwell left Birchmore's apartment, what we know is the final time anyone saw her alive. Farwell's
See how that's heavier there?
wife then gave birth to their third child together. And that leads into my next question about motive. Now, obviously, we know we don't need a motive to convict, but oftentimes it's good to explain to the jury why all this happened. And as I'm going through this lengthy affidavit, to me, red flags are going up left and right that he clearly has a motive. I mean, there was an ultimatum. His wife gave birth about 13 hours after he was at her apartment. She threatened to tell the wife. I mean, is that a pretty major motive?
I'll have to look into that one. Did you talk to me about that one last night too? I'll look into that, Jenny. Thank you, Southern Cal. Southern Cal's awesome.
That prosecutors would present?
It's a pretty major motive that the prosecutors would present. Yes. I mean, it's so easy to understand, you know. Some of the times with motive, it can be really convoluted. It can be tricky to get a jury to buy into it. And that's why it's important that you don't need to demonstrate a motive in cases. You know, it's not part of the burden to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. You don't have to prove why someone did it. You just have to prove that they did it. But if there is a motive, then you can certainly consider that in context with all the evidence to just.
I think it's better in a trial to have a motive than to not have a motive. That's just my opinion. I think, you know, I understand the idea that you don't have to have a motive. You don't have to prove a motive, but I think juries, I'll have to look into this deeper with statistics and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that it's probably heavily weighed if there's a motive.
Decide whether or not this person's guilty. And here, where there is such a clear motive that that's just so easy for a jury to grasp and understand, they're going to lean into it heavy because it explains all of the actions that followed.
We focused a lot on the prosecution's case because they have a
I'll look into some of those too in England for sure. I know I'm still trying to get back to the Princess in the Tower thing soon.
pretty big one. But we do know that Farwell pleaded not guilty to the charge.
Kind of waiting for that DNA to come back that they got in that. That's why I'm kind of holding off on that because I know that they did another DNA on some of those bones that they found, I think.
Charges just this week. So talking to you, a defense attorney, how is he going to come up with a defense against all of this evidence?
Oof, I don't know. I don't know how he's going to come up with a defense. If it was me, I mean, this is one of those situations where you might not even be looking.
Is that the murder weapon? Do you think that's the? Hold on a second here.
Of this evidence.
Oof, I don't know. I don't know how he's going to come up with a defense. If it was me, I mean, this is one of those.
See that thing that's hanging right there?
Those situations.
See that? That might be something to look into right there.
Where you might not even be looking to find that someone is not guilty. You might be trying to avoid the death penalty. This is a death penalty eligible case. Maybe life without death is something that Mr. Farwell could live with. It doesn't seem right now. He pled not guilty. He's gathering his defense, and he's just scared of what is to come. This is not someone who's expecting an indictment.
The wife knew about it too. I didn't know that. I didn't know the wife knew. See, that's why it's good to have other people in here, because I didn't know the wife knew. Maybe I did. Not sure. I've been following this case for a while, but the trouble when you follow these cases, you forget some of the information. Like the Mara Murray case, every time I go over the Mara Murray case, I forget things. And I've done like 4 or 5, 6 maybe different lives on Mara Murray. I might do another one.
He had essentially moved on with his life for 3 years, thinking that this was behind him and that there would be no charges coming. So now this is probably quite a shock to him, probably quite a shock to his family, who obviously had nothing to do with any of this and are victims along with everyone else involved. And so now they got to just see what the evidence is. I think once they see the breadth of the evidence,
This is like the oldest trick in the book, right? Like, and this is like going back to the Delphi case for a couple of minutes. One of the greatest tools that law enforcement has is what they call jailhouse confessions, or in the Delphi case, the prison case confessions. They put a lot of time, law enforcement and correction officers and all of these people that are associated with the prison systems. They put a lot of effort into getting these guys to, especially if they don't have a lot of evidence in a case, they'll try to go through great lengths to get these so-called jailhouse confessions from other inmates. And not just that, like, they sometimes use tactics that you might see in like prisoner of war camps. Like they'll have people getting close to them, trying to get, a confession out of the guy. And those things are huge when it comes to trials, man. Juries don't like confessions. They just don't. Now, there's people that do confess that aren't guilty. I've covered lots of cases like that. People confess a lot of times when they're being interrogated. That's why there's certain tactics that law enforcement can't use anymore for interrogations. But that's what they're probably hoping in this case too, that he kind of gets, they get a confession out of him in prison.
Once they get a good look at what they're up against, I think they can make some more informed decisions. Everyone pleads not guilty at the original.
You always hear about it, in these trials that you see, somebody coming forward, an inmate or something saying, I overheard this guy saying, and, you'd be surprised what people say in jail when they think that, they're being trusted or somebody's trying to be their friend. So it's a good tactic for them to use for sure. All right, so I'm going to do one more thing and then I'm going to get out of here. I want to do this here because this is pretty important. Let me share this here. So this, so this is another one of those things. I haven't found any more information on this case here, but this is going on in technically North Fort Myers. This intensifies search efforts for the missing 21-year-old from North Fort Myers. The Valdez family is handing out flyers at Terry Park along Palm Beach Boulevard. If you've ever been to Fort Myers, or if you haven't been, it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. It really is. Fort Myers and Naples, they're just, I would live there if I could. So let's check this out here.
The search continues for 21-year-old Ariel Valdez from North Fort Myers. She was last seen Wednesday after going out for a run. Earlier today, the Lee County Sheriff's Office Aviation Unit were circling around areas of interest, which included the neighborhood she left from and the bridge she was last seen on. NBC2's Kennedy Mason spoke with Valdez's family today, pleading for help as they experience this living nightmare.
Days of Ariel Valdez missing has been torture for her family. Now they're asking for your help to find her.
Please, we can eat, sleep for the past 48 hours, 32 hours. I lost time. I mean, my daughter is my heart. I have 2 other kids. They also are my heart. But guess what? No one's going to take her place. I want her bring back home, please. I just want to bring her back home.
Priscilla Cochino is desperately searching for her daughter. The Lee County Sheriff's Office says the last known place she was spotted is on video in a clip from a traffic camera showing the 21-year-old jogging over the Edison Bridge from North Fort Myers to downtown Wednesday evening.
She's training to do a marathon. So she's running long distance, 20 miles, 18 miles in a daily basis. She's very drive. She has a lot of determination and very disciplined.
However, Cochino says Ariel's running shoes are still at home. In the video, the day she went missing, she's seen wearing Converse.
The Valdez family is handing out these flyers.
3410 Palm Beach Boulevard. Okay, hold on a second. 3410. Hold on, let me try to find this. 3410 Palm Beach Boulevard. There it is.
Hoping someone will have some information.
Her family spent Saturday canvassing near Terry Park.
So this is hold on a second, let me share this here. Me and my map thing here. That's the Terry Park Sports Complex. Is that? I don't know. I'll have to find this place here. 310. This is 3410 Palm Beach Boulevard. This looks like a sports complex. I don't know. I must have the wrong address. All right, well, we'll get back to this here and then I'll get out of here. She's on the camera for a few seconds on the bridge. I haven't been able to find any more information on this here. Palm Beach Boulevard. That's
Park along Palm Beach Boulevard based on tips they received from neighbors nearby. LCSO posting Saturday, detectives with drones and the electronic surveillance unit are investigating several areas. LCSO says they don't have anything to show foul play.
efforts continue in the search for Ariel. I'm going to butcher this. Cotton Valdez, who went missing from North Fort Myers on Wednesday evening. The electronic surveillance unit is out assisting detectives with an additional drone search. So if you know any, if we urge you to contact 239-477-1000. Do you have any information?
Play is involved at this time. Cochino says she wants to do everything she can to help Ariel find her way in life and back home.
I have 3 kids, and I always tell her, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. She has such a drive. She's so composed and disciplined, and she's such a good person. I love her to death.
Local in Fort Myers, Kennedy Mason, NBC2.
Okay, so let me see here. Chevis is running in high top kind of basketball shoes, not her running shoes, and left her phone home and watch too. Yeah, I can't find any more information on this. But did they say that they're not considering this suspicious at this time? I don't know. I'll look into it though. I'll have to find that exact address and exact wherever she was there. But anyways, I'm gonna get the hell out of here. I've been here long enough, almost 2.5 hours already. But I want to thank everybody for coming in. I really appreciate it. Charlotte, you're awesome. Thank you so much. Astro from space, thank you so much for coming in. Thanks for all the help with some of these cases here. Gail Hurd, you're awesome. Thank you so much. Big fish, small pond. Thank you. Always good to have you in here. Jenny, you're great. Thank you. Southern Gal, I can't praise you enough. You're just a fantastic person. Literally. She does such great work. It's amazing. We need to start that band soon, and we need to do that panel live at some point. I said hi to Charlotte already. Cold Truth was in here. I know she was in here. Charlotte's awesome. Cold Truth is great. Go check her out. She's well, don't check her out, but check out her YouTube stuff or her lives. They're great. She's extremely intelligent. Who else was in here? I know Gail was in here. Gail's awesome. If I miss anybody, I'm sorry. Let's see here. I know Mustang was in here. Mustang is awesome. Thank you so much for coming in, Mustang. It started raining here a little bit, but I think it's gonna pass here. Miranda Lee's awesome. Miranda Lee, she's always welcome in here. She's hope she's doing okay. She's not grief is terrible. FarQ is awesome. Thank you, FarQ, for coming in. Who else was in here? Like I said, if I miss anybody, it's because I'm old. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I got everybody. But if I missed anybody, like I said, I'm sorry. But I'll probably be back next Saturday night, early Sunday morning. I might probably not do another live this week unless something disastrous happens and I have to. I was going to do the Tropics tonight, but there's really nothing going on. It's going to be pretty rainy and, Eastern Texas probably for the next couple of days, but I don't think anything's going to be coming out of that. Like I said, if I missed anybody, I'm sorry. Whoever was watching on the replay, thank you so much. I do appreciate all the people Karen Lee was in here too. Thank you, Karen, for coming in. Karen's awesome. What was I just saying? The replay people. Thank you so much. I know that people watch on the replay and I truly appreciate that. All right, I'm going to play my outro. Everybody have a good Labor Day tomorrow. Don't do anything. Stay safe. We'll see you guys later. Thank you again, everybody. Keep up the good work. We're doing a good job.